bottom part of the screen, land in the bottom part of the screen is Camp Echo's property. Across the lake, you can see some summer homes on the upper right, but we're zeroing in on the peninsula. You can start to see some of the docks on the right-hand side of the peninsula, also known as the west side of our peninsula. The kind of H or I looking docks are our swimming area with the barge sitting out in the middle of the water a little bit. And the big open space in the middle of that peninsula is our main field with sports courts kind of towards the bottom, baseball field. You can kind of make out some gaga pits. They look more circular than octagonal from this angle, from this elevation. Ooh, and we just switched it up to a bunch of trees. So we have lots of trees at Camp Echo. Again, we're just gonna play this footage for another minute or two to let folks come on in before we go ahead and get started. That kind of big open space on the right of our screen is actually our horse pasture. And then just to left that kind of beige sandy area is our horse riding ring. And then you can see our archery range, that big kind of green open space towards the bottom of the screen. And then more trees. We have about 500 acres of property at Camp Echo. So lots and lots of trees. Most of it is forested, although we do have some wetlands as well. And then of course, areas that we use more actively with our cabins that are a little more developed. And this drone footage that we're sharing is available on YouTube. It's about, I think, half an hour of drone footage. We're not going to watch all of it here tonight. So if you're just curious or want some soothing nature drone footage to watch sometime, you're welcome to find it on our YouTube page. As we get situated, you can familiarize yourself with the question and answer feature within Zoom. So Sid, Sarah, and I will be using the Q&A feature. If you have questions throughout the presentation tonight, you can just type them in to that. You should be able to access that with a little Q&A button on the bottom of the Zoom window. I know a lot of us have been on Zoom a lot this year, but we're still learning new things. This is the Camp Echo team's first time actually using the webinar feature. So we're excited to try this out. And oh, fantastic. We already have our first question, a great question. And we will answer some of these questions live throughout the presentation while also answering some of them via the chat and the Q&A. So Malia, we see your question, and we'll wait just a little bit to answer it so that we can wait till everyone can hear our response to that. But with that, I think we're ready to get started here. So we will hit pause on the drone footage. We'll switch over to a PowerPoint presentation. And get started. So welcome everyone to Camp Echo Traditional Camp Info Session for summer 2021. We'll kick things off a little bit with some introductions. My name is Bernard. I also go by Nardo a lot at camp, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the executive director at Camp Echo. Been here at Camp Echo for a little while now. This will be my 7th or 8th season, I believe 8th season as the executive director. 2020 kind of threw me off with things, but it was a great season of family camp. And I will let Sarah and Sid also introduce themselves.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah.
Sarah, you
am I muted?
Are muted, I think. Oh, no.
I am heard. I am not muted. Weird. Okay. Well, I'm really excited for you all to join us. Wish we were in person like we would normally be at the Children's Center and see your faces, but still excited to be able to let you know what to expect at camp this summer. This summer will be my 7th at Camp Echo, and you've gotten many emails from me. You'll hear from me a lot. I am often the person that you will hear from throughout the summer, and really excited to go have kids back at camp this summer.
Hey, I'm Sid. My pronouns are she, her, and I work with the programs and the staff in our on-site programs, so traditional camp and our teen programs and things like that. And this will be my third summer at Camp Echo.
Okay, and we will get started with what we're going to be covering, but Bernard often likes to remind us that everything we do at camp is through the lens of our goals. Can you hear me now, Bernard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Nod your head, Sarah, if you can hear me. Oh, fantastic. All right. Awesome. I think we are ready to go to that next slide there. And I believe, Sarah, you're actually going to take this one, correct?
Yeah, Bernard, can you hear me at all? Or are we having some serious tech problems? You can't hear me at all. Okay, cool. Well, then I will tell you about Camp Echo's goals, our safety, community, personal growth, and have fun. And so we achieve these goals in a variety of ways. And so that's the lens from which we think about everything that we do at camp. I will talk about those a little bit more. But what are we going to cover tonight? So Bernard already kind of introduced us to the Q&A feature. Our favorite part of every information session is at the end when we get to answer all the questions. So we're hopeful that as we go through the presentation, you'll learn a lot and we'll answer questions, but we'll also take time at the very end to answer every single question. It's the best part. So please don't hesitate as we go through, put all your questions in the Q&A box. And yeah, we're going to talk about our traditional camp program on main camp for our rising 3rd through 9th graders. We're going to talk about what you can expect, how we get to the starts of the session, what a typical day looks like. We'll talk about activities, how to prepare. So we're going to cover a lot of really helpful information. But there's also some things that we're not going to discuss during this time together tonight. That includes some things that are in our information videos, which are on our YouTube page, but we're also going to be emailing to parents tomorrow. And there is a video going in depth about our goals, a video that's really helpful, tips for packing, more in-depth information about our swim evaluation, which we'll touch on briefly, and also some more about your Camp in Touch account, which you're all familiar with. It's how you registered. It's also where you have your forms and how you can communicate with campers during the summer and see photos and all that stuff. We're also not going to talk in depth during this info session about departures and arrivals, so how you get to camp and how you return. So there are two options. Most campers typically take the bus round trip from the McGaw YMCA in Evanston, but folks can also drop off at camp as well. It's about a 4-hour drive from Evanston. We're going to be sharing more details about that in the coming weeks because it's going to be pretty significantly different than before with staggered times for the bus departures. With our new COVID protocol. So we're not going to talk about that tonight, but more information coming. And we're not going to spend the entire time talking about COVID. In a minute, Bernard's going to hit you with some highlights about COVID, but we are hosting a separate COVID-specific information night on Wednesday, May 12th. That's at 5:30 is for on-site programs. There's another one for adventure trips, I think at 7. And so we're going to share a lot of our information about COVID then. So we're hopeful that we can try and focus as much as possible on the program and the experience during this time. But again, you're welcome to ask as many questions as you have. And now Bernard is going to tell us a little bit about the highlights on COVID. Does that mean you can hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay.
I apologize. It's not a Zoom webinar without a few technical mishaps here. So yeah, we've already been seeing a few COVID questions coming in, and we really do appreciate it. So we wanted to provide a high level kind of guiding principles of how we're approaching COVID at camp. And I'll do my best if there are some specific questions that come up in the Q&A that I can answer via typing on the side. We'll do that. If I'm not able to answer it, we'll save those and make sure that we answer those in our more detailed session in May. Because we want to make sure that we have time to answer questions and kind of talk about the programmatic experience. So as we continue to refine our COVID protocols, things continue to evolve rapidly, and in a lot of ways that give us a lot of hope while still remaining cautious. So we are actively following and plan to implement a combination of the American Camp Association, State of Illinois, State of Michigan, and the CDC guidelines and recommendations. And each of these entities is putting out information in kind of a variety of levels. There's the minimum expectations, there are recommendations, and then there are best practices. And so we're trying to layer as many of those, obviously meeting the minimum requirements for safety to maintain our accreditation and licensing and provide a really safe quality program. And then layering on additional recommendations and best practices to the extent that we can within our operational realities. Every camp is a little bit different. So we're thinking about how we operate and what our facilities are like so that we can create the safest environment while still providing the experience we want for all of our campers. So we're continuing to monitor those. And again, they continue to be updated, as you all know, routinely. We do expect pre-camp health monitoring and testing. So we're going to be asking families to do symptom checks prior to coming to camp and some sort of self-test. We're still finalizing what that self-test is going to look like within 3 to 5 days of coming to camp, and working to be able to make that accessible in some way in Evanston. Again, we're still working with partners, looking into evolving protocols and practices so that we can make testing accessible to everyone. But we want to make sure that we clarify or state openly here that we're not asking campers or staff to isolate or quarantine before coming to camp. We don't think that's a realistic expectation for many in our community. We know that a lot of kids will be in other camp programs. We are asking that, that you're monitoring and following all of the, again, Illinois, if you're in Illinois or whatever state guidelines you are in your programs and your regular activities, and monitoring for symptoms. At camp, we do expect to do some sort of COVID testing and doing daily health checks. We expect to do tests of surveillance screening of all of camp, and currently the state of Michigan is working on possibly providing those tests to all camps in Michigan. So figuring out how we'll be able to do symptom checks for our campers that are coming for 2 weeks or more. We don't necessarily anticipate doing surveillance screening in our 1 week programs. And then having rapid tests available in the event that someone were to be symptomatic. And then, for our adventure trips, we do have their group evacuation for positive tests. That is something that would be more applicable to our wilderness trips, not necessarily for our on-site programs, where though we would have protocols in place if we were to have a positive test on camp. Pod cabin-based program model, we're already in such great position with that by having our camp divided up into cabins. We're reducing our capacity slightly, so we're only going to have up to eight campers and 2 staff in each cabin. So groups of no more than 10 people, whereas in the past it would be 10 campers and 2 or 3 counselors. So slightly smaller groups, and getting used to being with that group throughout the day and all the different activities that we do. And we'll talk more about that in the programming. Outside as much as possible. Camp Echo is a very outside program. There are very few times when we historically have spent a lot of time inside, but we're going to continue to minimize that and be thoughtful about what it looks like when we're in camp. So really emphasizing on staying outside as much as possible. That includes many of our meals, eating outside with our meals as much as possible. Anyone who has heard about our family camp program last year, we ate every single meal outside. We had a few rainy meals where families took their meals back to their cabins and ate, but we had a really great time eating outside, and we'll continue to think about how we can be outside as much as possible. And then extensive use of masks, physical distancing, hand washing. When we're not able to physically distance from other folks, we plan on wearing masks. We're again entering right now. We want to set the expectation of utmost caution, and if guidance comes out later that maybe shifts that, then we'll definitely review that. But we're going to continue to approach things from a cautious lens, plan on wearing masks throughout the day at camp, with the exceptions of when we're sleeping, swimming, eating, doing other aquatic activities, or when we can safely distance ourselves if we're, for instance, if we're going for a nature hike and spreading ourselves out, or doing maybe sitting outside, spread out, doing a crafts project or something of that sort. I did see a question about wearing masks in our cabins. So that does apply to within our pods as well. We want to continue to minimize the risk of COVID being spread within pods, within groups. And so even when we're in our cabins, unless we're in our bunk beds, so going to bed, or if we're all in our bunks during a rest hour, those would be times when we could be in our cabin without our masks. But if we're up moving about in our cabins, we would expect to wear masks. Hand washing, sanitizing throughout the day. So kind of layering as many of these non-pharmaceutical interventions on top of each other as we can. We call it, the analogy we've been using a lot is the Swiss cheese, layers of Swiss cheese. Each of these, practices isn't perfect, but we know that if we layer more and more of them, there's less likelihood that the holes will line up and that anything will pass through. So those are kind of, again, just like a summary high level of what we're doing with COVID, how we're approaching it. And I will answer some of the additional questions kind of in the Q&A as well. And if there are some themes that emerge later on at the end of the session, I can answer a few more questions. If we go to the next slide there.
Not a COVID slide. You ready? Okay. So that's the high level COVID. We will continue to answer your questions. But now we're going to shift into what the experience is like at camp, starting with what happens once you've arrived. And then we'll shift into kind of what you can expect in a regular day. So the first days at camp, some of the things that you'll get to do is you'll meet your counselors. You'll get to know who else is in your group, who your cabin mates are. Like Bernard said, up to 8 campers and 2 counselors. You'll get a tour of camp with your group. We have about 500 acres. We're on a beautiful lake, so you'll get a chance to get familiar with the property and where things are. And you'll learn about our core values. So our code of conduct is one of the forms that we ask families to complete before you come to camp. It used to be a paper form that we asked parents or guardians to sit down and review with their camper and have their camper physically sign it. We're trying to eliminate paper forms right now. So it is a digital form this year, and there isn't a place for the camper signature, but we still hope and expect that you can sit down with your camper to review our rules and expectations at camp that are outlined in our code of conduct through the core values of caring, honesty, respect, responsibility. We say when we do all of those things, we have fun. So you'll get a chance when you arrive to camp to review that both with your unit, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and with your counselors in your cabin. We want to tell you a little bit about our counselors. We have really wonderful staff, and they do a rigorous background checks and are also have a lot of training before your camper arrives, including specific child safety trainings. So what else happens on the first days? You'll get a chance to get settled in your actual cabin. So this is a picture of what a cabin looks like at Camp Echo with our beautiful built-in bunk beds and open cubbies. All of our cabins have been renovated in the past couple of years by our amazing facilities team, and they're really wonderful spaces. They also have a screened-in porch on the back. We will get a chance to go to our health clinic. So we will be taking temperatures either at bus departures or if you drive to camp at your drop-off. So that will be the very first interaction you have. But when we go to the clinic, we'll get a chance to meet our health team, our wellness staff. So both our physical health officers as well as our MESH staff, our mental, emotional, social health staff. So we will, again, talk more about COVID-specific clinic-related things again at the end. But please know that if we ever have a need to take a camper into town or where they would need to spend the night, we would contact parents. One of the questions on the health form is about over-the-counter medicine, and we ask if we have permission to give your camper over-the-counter medicine without contacting you. And if you say, no, you have to contact me, that means that if your camper has a headache and we would like to give them Tylenol, we would have to get verification by phone from you first. So we encourage you to have that conversation as a family, but we do communicate with families throughout camp as necessary about health needs in the clinic. And we also, like I said, our clinic team, our wellness team includes our mesh staff, and we really focus on spirit, mind, and body at Camp Echo. It's a Y-ism. And so both with our mesh staff, but also with our counselors, we do things called SMAB check-ins, which stands for spirit, mind, and body. Opportunities for us to just check in and see how everyone's doing. We know it's been a really tough year, and it's a great opportunity to have one-on-one check-ins to make sure everyone is feeling supported, not just their physical health, but also their mental, emotional, social health. More things that happen on the first day, we'll go swimming. And this could happen on Sunday when you arrive or on Monday, depending on your cabin, because we want to make sure everyone has a chance to take the swim evaluation. Since we aren't having camptivities this year, which we'll talk about in a bit, we aren't able to offer daily swim lessons for campers that are red or white swimmers, which means they didn't complete the evaluation as blue swimmers do. But if kids are interested, there are still so many opportunities to build confidence in the water and to strengthen their swimming skills. So we're excited to offer opportunities for campers to swim almost every day, either with their cabin or during free choice time. And every camper will learn about water safety. Again, we're on a lake, so we have lots of opportunities to be in the water. I encourage you to watch the info video about our swim evaluation, but the highlight is a blue swimmer is a camper who, or staff member, completes the swim evaluation, which is 6 lengths, which is about 240 yards of any recognizable stroke, followed by 1 minute of treading and 9 minutes for floating or treading. It is not, the swimming portion is not timed. We know most people haven't been in the water for a full year now. So you can take as long as you need. If you have the ability to practice a little bit before camp, it's a good idea. And also just talk with your camper about the difference between pool swimming and open water swimming, because it is a little bit different. And so if your camper completes that, they'll be able to access all of our water activities. But also when we're not in the swimming area, if we're in any other water area on camp, we're always wearing life jackets as well. And we have lifeguards who can support our what we call white or red swimmers to still engage in other water activities safely. Sid or Bernard, anything to add about swimming? That was an okay summary? Okay. So Bernard is gonna, and yes, the swim evaluation typically happens on the first days of camp, we like to say. There's so much to do when campers arrive, and sometimes there isn't always time on Sunday. So we say the first days. It'll happen either on Sunday or on Monday at the start of the session. Okay, Bernard. You're muted.
So what's new for 2021? Certainly, we've talked a little bit about some of the COVID protocols, and again, I will answer some of that. There's some great additional questions coming out. We'll save some time at the end to answer some of these follow-up questions. And the biggest things I think that are going to shift are just kind of being with our cabin more this year. I already talked about it, slightly smaller cabin sizes, and our language is changing a little bit. We talk about cabins or pods. For us, that's kind of one and the same. A cabin group is a pod. It's 10 kids or 10 individuals at most, and they'll be scheduled to do a lot of their activities together throughout the day. We're really excited about this. It's been kind of forced upon us in some ways, but we're already making some shifts in some of our programming for summer 2020 to give more time for cabins to be together, to deepen those relationships they're building while still creating opportunities for the cabins to do different activities, to meet the interests of different groups. And we think this will expose a lot of our campers to more activities than they necessarily would have otherwise when they only had the opportunity to pick a couple of camptivities that they had to specialize in for their time at camp. So a lot of time with the cabins and scheduling more times to do or building into those daily schedules times for creative activities, our classic camp activities. And we'll talk a little bit more about what all those activities look like a little bit later on, but we'll make sure also there's time each day where, the cabins, the counselors will be more clued in and checked in with the campers in their group because they're with them throughout the day to know if they need to kind of take a little more rest time or a little more self-care time, or maybe take, set aside some time today for everyone to shower so that everyone's staying clean and healthy throughout the session. So we're really excited about this idea of all the cabins spending more time in their groups together. We do know that in addition to those deep relationships we build within our cabins, we want to continue to promote strong community across our cabins. So in addition to our cabins, we have units that will be doing more programming together. And so units are groups of 5 or so cabins of the same age, and they'll have at least once a day, they'll do kind of activities as a bigger group, again, taking into account COVID and not doing high risk activities where they're in close proximity and doing a lot of things, but it might be things like talent shows or everyone going down to the waterfront at the same time, and cabins having different areas, and 1 or 2 cabins maybe being on the beach, cabin being in the water, and another cabin being out on our swimming barge. So thinking of ways that our campers can still have connection with campers in other cabins within their unit throughout the session. So we're really excited about this kind of cabin, then unit, then all camp, these different kind of layers of community that we'll be building this summer. Again, the schedule, the counselors will have a little more autonomy and flexibility there. We'll be eating a lot of our meals outside, and I did see something, I mentioned earlier that we're outside all the time, and someone said, well, what about if it's raining? This is a great question. And, if it's a light rain, if there's not thunder and lightning or strong winds, we oftentimes continue on with our activities and just be outside and enjoy the rain. Think about heading through doing hikes where the trees are protecting us from a lot of the rain, or playing sports or going swimming. Swimming in the rain is pretty fun when it's a light drizzle. And then if there is thunder or lightning, then we do go inside and we'll have creative programming planned. We call it our rainy day programming. We have all sorts of different programs that our counselors come up with for those times when we do have to be in our cabin because of more inclement weather to stay safe. So great question there. And I did see also a question about sharing bunks. And again, because we have less people in our cabins, that means we will have some open bunk beds in our cabins, but campers can expect that they may have, someone above or below them, but we'll be sleeping head to toe. So making sure that, again, our heads are spaced out as far from each other as possible. And though our cabins don't have air conditioning, we do have exhaust fans that cycle air throughout the cabin continuously. So we'll have those running. We've got screens in our windows, again, so we can continuously, and our doors, so we can continuously have airflow through our cabins when we're staying there. Some other things that'll be a little bit different are Saturdays in our 2-week sessions. Historically, that would be a day where we'd be doing an all camp program. Everyone would be intermixed, and we'd have what we call the Olympics oftentimes. And we're coming up with some other special creative programming that units would get to do together that will have themes from the Olympics. We'll have some of those same competitive activities and spirit-based activities, creative activities, while also thinking creatively about other ways that we might program these kind of special midpoints of our sessions. So a lot happening. We also are inviting campers in the forums section to identify if they're interested in all gender cabin. That's something new this year that we began to offer for summer 2020, but didn't have the opportunity to see play out. And so if we have a number of campers who are interested in an all gender cabin of the same age and attending the same session, then we have opportunities to explore having an all gender cabin at Camp Echo. So those are just some of the things that kind of are evolving for summer 2021 that we're really excited about. And I will we'll transition to that next slide. And this just kind of summarizes what I just kind of talked through to some degree. So we, a typical day, we wake up, we have some Kaibo time. We still do our flag raisings and morning reflections, and those will likely be with our units. So, instead of being all camped together, those will be groups of 5 or 6 cabins. We'll have some breakfast, get ready for the day, clean our cabins with our counselors, head off to do some activities, likely with our cabins, possibly one of those being with our unit. we'll have some lunch. We take our Saska rest hour, and yeah, Kaibo is our bathhouses. Have a couple more activity times in the afternoon before heading to dinner, and then doing kind of a creative evening program, might be a talent show, a skit night, a scavenger hunt, something like that with our unit of cabins before kind of winding down for the evening with some Kaibo time, some clinic, and taps. And taps is a time at the end of the day where we all, our cabins reflect together on the day, highlight a miracle moment, something really magical that happened that day, and then kind of quiet down and get some sleep. It's a big day. There's a lot packed in there. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sid, and she'll share a little more about the cabin activities.
Yeah, I'm happy to. My favorite thing, camp activities. So like Bernard mentioned, every day we have 4 rounds of activity time, 2 rounds in the morning and 2 rounds in the afternoon that are 1.5 hours each. So 2 of those activity times will be in our traditional program areas, which is on the next slide, but those are things like archery and arts and crafts, canoeing, those sorts of things. One of those rounds will be a special activity. So that's where our counselors really get to be creative and use their own personal skill set to do something fun with their cabin. So that may be something like kind of a muddy walk through the creek, or maybe we've done like a tri-ball situation where it's like kickball and I think tennis and wiffle ball all combined into one thing, but it's something that's kind of special, kind of creative, and really campers and their counselors get a lot of input and a lot of opportunity to create something kind of special for that time. And then the last kind of 1.5 hours of activity will be a unit choice time. So we really want to make sure that campers do have an opportunity to experience some independent choice. So during this time, a whole unit of campers will be able to pick between, say, 3 to 4 different activities that we feel really confident we can do in kind of a safe and socially distant way. So, for example, they may be able to pick between like a nature hike, maybe an arts and crafts activity, and then potentially like a camp craft, a fire building or shelter building type of activity. And this is also the time when campers who are signed up for horseback riding lessons, which is another slide we'll get to in just a minute, will go to their horseback riding lessons. So that's kind of what those 4 rounds of activities will look like each day. Great. Like I mentioned, these are the traditional camp activities that we offer at Camp Echo. A lot of these are specific areas around camp. So of course, archery is a place where, you go and you do archery specifically there, and same with like arts and crafts and biking and that sort of thing. And then there's some kind of more creative types of activities that we can kind of do anywhere, like dance and drama and that sort of thing. And the goal this summer is to make sure that all campers get an opportunity to try everything. And so hopefully, that'll be part of the schedule, as each cabin will get to do a little bit of everything throughout their session. There is kind of an element of progression. So we want to make sure that as campers are getting a little bit older and as their interests change a little bit, we make sure that we add in some different things. So like high ropes, for example, is something that maybe our older middle school campers will get to do. And then campers with kind of an interest in that area as well. And then, maybe our younger campers will do a little bit more in the challenge area or the climbing wall, that sort of thing. I think those are the main highlights there. And of course, horses. I know we've had a couple of questions about horses specifically, if it is a sign up situation or not. And it is a yes and answer there. So we have already done a lot of horseback riding registration so far this year, but the goal is to make sure that every camper has an opportunity to have a horseback riding experience. So that may be the whole cabin going to the barn and doing like some ring rides and learning some skills. Might be kind of an afternoon trail ride with a cabin group, or maybe a horseback overnight, that kind of thing. And then of course, campers who want to have kind of more structured lessons have had the opportunity to sign up for those lessons, sessions 2 through 5. So our 2-week sessions, and those, like I mentioned, will be happening during the unit choice time. So campers that are enrolled in horseback riding lessons will essentially miss out on maybe some of the activities that are offered during that unit choice time, but that is okay, as long as horseback riding is something they're really excited to do. Currently, lessons are full in all of the sessions that they're offered, but you can absolutely still be added to the wait list by completing the form that is available on your Camp in Touch account. All right, and kind of a more specific look at the schedule that Bernard talked about a little while ago. Just like we always have, we're going to wake up to that beautiful bell that I think someone mentioned in the Q&A. We'll have some time to use the Kaibo and enjoy the morning. We'll get with our unit and do some flag raising and morning reflection, eat some breakfast, maybe enjoy that outside and lovely Cafe Echo. We'll do some cabin cleanup and a daily health check, just kind of get ready for the full day. And then we'll start in with those rounds of activities. So like we mentioned, there will be 2 in the morning, and it may be in this schedule, it's a traditional camp activity and another traditional camp activity right after that. But it may be that you have, arts and crafts and then unit choice time, or cabin special and then arts and crafts. So that's kind of what happens in the morning. Then we have a lunch. And of course, Saska, which is our rest hour, a glorious time of the day. And then right after that, when everyone is well rested and ready for the afternoon, we'll roll right into our afternoon activities, which, like I mentioned, will be one of those kind of 3 options, either a traditional camp activity or a unit choice or a cabin special situation. And then we will have dinner, and we will end with kind of a twilight fun and sunset special. And twilight fun is, again, kind of a relaxing time of the day. Usually that's when we enjoy some trading post types of items. And again, it's an opportunity for counselors and staff to kind of get creative with a sunset special and some kind of fun activity to do with a group. And then evening program. And so that is when we do kind of large group activities, again, making sure that we can be, socially distant, but still interact with campers that are maybe not in our pod or cabin group. And so you can see as an example here, it looks like Stefik is going to get to do Clue on this particular night. But we also do things like talent shows or, campfires and things like that throughout the session. And then after all of that is done, then it is finally time to start winding down, go to the clinic to do, medications or, just check in, have some time in the Kaibo to brush teeth, wind down, taps, and then it is time to sleep. So that's kind of a day in the life of a Camp Echo traditional camper.
That's so much, and yet there's still more, if you can believe it. So we've talked about the first day, we've talked about a typical day. There's still more things that happen at camp. So we talked about the trading post a couple times, our camp store. So included in your registration fee, every camper has $50 for our camp store. We often refer to it as the teepee. It's a great opportunity for campers to learn how to budget their money, something I bet you don't expect to learn at camp. But so we sell both gear and we also sell edible treats. How we do the trading post experience will look a little different this year. We won't all be lining up inside. We will be scheduling times for cabins to get gear, and we'll have a different system for how we're delivering the edible treats that campers choose after dinner. But that's still an opportunity that exists. Parents and guardians are able to add more than $50 if you would like. You can also tell us if you'd rather your camper not have the $50 and have less than that. But you do not have to add more money. So if your camper writes you in the session and says, I ran out, you totally have the option to say, well, sounds like you spent your money. Or you can choose to add more funds to their account. You can see it in your Camp in Touch account and see what they've spent. So we encourage you to have that conversation before the summer about making good choices with the budget. And new this year, we have an online store. So if you've never been to camp before, or you've grown out of your gear and you're wanting something before you get to camp, you can go to campechotradingpost.com and order things now to get before camp. We're also going to be having our starter kits in the next month or so, which will be kind of a nice variety of different things to get you ready for camp. So there's lots of ways to get your Camp Echo gear. more things that happen. Every cabin will have a camp out experience. So whether that's an overnight or what we've called an undernight. So we, on our 500 acres, have a variety of sites that have fire pits. So cabins, instead of going to dinner at the dining hall or the cafe one night, will go to one of the overnight sites, cook some sizzle burgers with their counselors, and either spend the night there or, come back at the end of the evening. They get to do some night hikes. It's a really fun, special opportunity for a cabin. It's often a highlight. Bernard mentioned Saturdays. So in the past, we've had Olympics. It's going to look different this year, but we're still going to do something super fun on Saturdays to split up the week and get to have something a little more spirited and different. For campers that are with us during session 3, that's during 4th of July, and we do our own fireworks at Camp Echo. And so it's a really special day to make the summer, to be able to sit on the peninsula and to see our fireworks is a really special thing to look forward to. And we're going to have a whole lot of fun. So we love a theme day at Camp Echo. We often on Wednesdays like to get dressed up for Wacky Wednesday. We do some diversity and inclusion days. So there's a lot of fun additional things that happen that the schedule itself does not do a good job of conveying, but things that are unique and special to every single session. So each session looks a little different. But I can promise you every Wednesday we will get wacky. So be sure to pack your wacky gear. Okay, we're getting close to the Q&A. You guys are doing great. There's a couple more helpful tips we want to point out before we shift just to Q&A. Preparing for camp. The camper forms are live. Most of them are due 5 weeks before the session. We do ask that you complete the cabin gender form 10 weeks before the session so we can get enough information to see how many campers are interested in our all gender cabins. But the rest of them, for the most part, are about 5 weeks out. Encourage you to do the camper form with your camper. So there's a new form this year called the additional camper information form. It's not really that new. It includes the camper's letter to counselor, but it's in its own form now. So you can sit down with your camper, answer some questions about them for their counselors to get to know, and to tell their counselors kind of about themselves. So take the time to go through that with your camper. And also talk about camp to build positive anticipation. We know that missing home is a normal part of life and a part of the camp experience, and there's nothing wrong about missing home. So encourage your camper to be honest if they have those feelings and to let us know so we can help and plan out some coping strategies. Maybe send a picture of a pet or a stuffed animal. Make sure you can write letters back and forth when you're missing each other. But missing home is a totally normal part of the experience. It doesn't mean that we can't have fun. If you can, if it's safe for your family to try and schedule some sort of sleepover with friends or relatives, we really encourage that the first time that your camper comes to camp should not, as much as possible, be their first time away from home. That was confusing how I said that. Let me try again. We encourage you to have some sort of sleepover event. Make sure you've had at least one night away from your parents or guardians. And so being at camp isn't the first time that you're away from them. Adults, we encourage you to leave a positive impression at bus departure or the drop-off. It's really hard if the last thing your camper sees before they're gone for a week or two is the adult in their life crying. So we like to joke, bring your sunglasses, do what you got to do, but make sure you're smiling and waving when those buses roll out so your camper knows how excited you are for them. And establish some sort of a letter writing plan. Have clear expectations of, I want to make sure we're writing like twice a week or whatever it is for your family to feel like you know what's going on with each other. We have these things called camper emails on your Camp in Touch account, where your camper where you can type an email that is printed and given to your camper when we deliver mail. And then you can do a reply note that you check a box and then your camper will get a blank sheet of paper. They'll write in it, they'll return it to us, and then we'll scan it and send it back. So there is a way to get information back and forth more quickly. We also love good old-fashioned postcards and letters, although those take a little bit more time. When you're packing, make sure that you label absolutely everything: clothing, water bottles, underwear, masks, everything. We encourage you to put a bathing suit near the top if possible, in case your camper does have some evaluation when they arrive. Pack with your campers so they know what's in their bags. It's not very helpful if they have something that they don't know is there. Make sure you pack your wacky gear, and even label your bag. You can never label too much. Things that you should not bring to camp: please do not bring any actual money. The trading post is all digital through your Camp and Touch account, so we don't accept any cash money. So please do not bring any. We are screen free. We have all been in front of our screens this entire year. So this is a really wonderful opportunity to be away from our phones and away from our computers. No screens at Camp Echo. We really want to be able to build meaningful relationships face to face. And also we are drug and tobacco free. Campers, we want you to communicate with us. We're really excited that you're going to get to spend so much time with your cabin mates and your counselors and get to know them really well. And the counselors are really amazing. And we do a lot of training, but they aren't mind readers. So if you need anything, we really just ask that you ask for help. It's actually one of our goals at camp. So if your bed is wet, if you're not sure where you're supposed to be, or you're not sure what's next on the schedule, if you miss home, if someone's not treating you nicely, please let your counselors know. That's why they're there. They're there to make sure that you have a great time, and they can only help you if they know that you need something. So like we said, we do those SMAB check-ins for spirit, mind, and body. But when your counselor asks you how things are going, that's your opportunity to really let them know if something's wrong. But also, if you can, maybe let them know before they even ask. And as you get to know them, hopefully you'll feel comfortable to do so. Parents and guardians, please encourage your campers to ask. Sometimes campers will write things home in their camper emails, but they don't tell us as the adults at camp. And so we really hope that we can build strong relationships so there is that trust there, but encourage your campers to ask for help. Okay, a couple of reminders, just check out those info videos about some of the things we didn't discuss. We have a lot of great details on our website also about our forms, about payments. Final payment is May 14th. Everything is refundable. Photos on your Camp and Touch account, more details about the food services. And like Bernard said, we are hosting another COVID specific info night for on-site programs on May 12th. And we will continue to send you communication about all things COVID. Okay, and we have made it to our favorite part, the question and answer. I have not been looking at the question box, so Bernard and Sid. Oh, and before we answer your questions, we want to remind you that you can always contact us by email or by phone. That is our phone number all year long, while we're in Evanston and while we're at Camp Echo. So we're only a phone call away. We check our emails round the clock in the summertime. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
All right, this has been new and challenging. So many different questions coming at us in the chat box and the Q&As. And so I'm gonna try to answer some of the questions from the Q&A that I haven't typed responses to, or I don't believe we've answered live. And then I may go through some of the questions I did type responses to, just to elaborate on those a little bit. Then we'll probably pivot from there to the chat box. So there were a couple of questions. Two folks who are enrolled in camp who will be coming from Texas. And we talked about at the beginning that we don't anticipate having a quarantine or isolation requirement for campers coming to camp. We do have plan on symptom checking and testing before coming to camp. At this time, we don't anticipate there being additional quarantine requirements for campers who are traveling unless they're coming from a hotspot state. Now, we recognize right now the COVID rates are really different all over the country. And in fact, Michigan is the highest state. And so we want to be really mindful that if our campers are coming from a hotspot state, that we would ask them to match the travel restrictions that are in place at that time from the Gall YMCA. And currently that is a extended quarantine of, and it's evolving. I believe we're at 10 days right now if you're coming from a hotspot state. But again, it's evolving with regards to, the CDC recommendations. So if you're traveling, please continue to monitor the status, and we'll continue to update folks if the travel restrictions change as summer approaches. But that is a risk. What are meals like? Meals are fantastic. They're all sorts of different things. We always have kind of a main entree. We try to, at breakfast, we're oftentimes have pancakes and scrambled eggs and bagels. And so always have a hot option at breakfast, and always have dietary, should the meals be, primary options be meat or dairy or gluten. We always have gluten-free, dairy-free, vegetarian, and or vegan options available. If we have dietary restrictions, we can't always promise that we'll have explicit options beyond that. We don't have any peanuts or tree nuts in camp. We don't have peanut butter. So we do have, with our lunches, a lot is pizzas, etc., and always have wild butter, which is a soy-based butter, and jelly sandwiches as an alternative. Dinners, again, we tend to have variety of things, hot dogs, hamburgers. Last summer, one of our really popular options was for lunch was gyros or chicken shawarma. So a variety of delicious meals. And we also have a lot of snacks. In the past, we've had snacks available in our dining hall throughout the day for campers to grab when they wanted. We don't want campers just going in and grabbing snacks on their own, but so we'll be providing our cabins. Each cabin will have, the counselors will grab a bunch of snacks for their group for the day. So they can have granola bars, apples, oranges, bananas with them as they're out daily. And at breakfast, we always have, at all our meals, we always have fresh fruit available to our campers. And we cannot bring snacks or food from home. Again, if it's a unique dietary physical health situation, then I would encourage you to reach out to Sarah. And it's something we can consider. In the past, we've had some unique circumstances that we make accommodations for. Can my camper bring just a digital camera, not a phone, just a 10-year-old camera? Yes. The spirit of our technology policy is that campers not bring anything that can connect to the internet or that has games or movies, things of that nature, any connectivity outside of camp. We want people to be present. So if you have something that's strictly camera, you're welcome to bring that. If you have, like some people have Fitbits that really all they do is track steps, that's fine. But then, we don't have, like, sometimes people ask, can we bring like this type of like a Fitbit or something? I don't know all the Fitbits that are out there. There could be things that connect to the internet you can play games on. And so just again, the spirit intent of our expectation is that they're not things with games or videos or anything, any internet connectivity. All right, I'm going to look back at these. Sarah, I was looking at the Q&A. I don't know, I heard you talking about our all gender cabins in our form. Did you answer that question? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, so I can say it again, just to be clear. So that form, we ask that folks complete 10 weeks before their camper's session. And we're hopeful that within 4 weeks of that camper session, that we'll be able to let folks know if we're able to offer all gender cabins. We need, enough campers within the same grade range to be able to do that each session. But it's something we're really excited about and hopeful that that's something that folks are interested in. So I encourage you to fill out that form.
Fantastic. And I spoke briefly about the bunkmate requests. And so that is a form that's in our Camp in Touch where you can request to be with up to 2 other campers. And so groups of 3 campers who mutually request to be together can be in the same cabin. We work really hard to make that happen. But if it's more than that many campers, we just can't promise that. And a big part of our program is making new friends. So we don't want to have 4 or 5 or 6 campers in a cabin that already are really good friends. We try to avoid that, which is why we have the 3 camper limit. And we do know that this year we tried something different during registration. You could request to be in the same program as another camper. And so someone asked if we needed to request bunkmates again. And you do need to fill out that bunkmate request form again. That initial one was to get into the same session with the other camper. And if that's the only camper you want to be with, that's great. But we also recognize that a lot could change between January when we sign up for camp and the summer. So we want to make sure that we have the best information there. So please fill that out again. Let's see here. Are Apple Watches allowed if they do not connect to the internet and do not have games? So again, I'm not familiar with all Apple Watches. I think it sounds like if they don't have any games and they just are there to track steps and play music, sometimes people bring music devices. I think they're allowed. I don't know if Sarah, Sid, or if you have more insight than I do about Apple Watches these days.
I will just say, for context, something that we used to say that is probably obsolete now is we would say like an iPod Shuffle, because that's kind of the only device that we were aware of that is truly just a music playing device, does not connect to the internet, does not have games. It literally just shuffles music. I am not familiar also, as Bernard, with Apple Watches specifically, but that is sort of a reference point.
And someone has said that you can definitely game on a Fitbit. So if you can game on it, you shouldn't have it at camp. And we, if in doubt, I'd say I really encourage people not to bring it. It's just one more thing that could get broken or lost. And we cannot guarantee that those devices won't get broken or lost. And should someone have something at camp with them that they shouldn't have, our staff will hold on to it. We'll put it in our safe in our office for safekeeping and return it at the end of the session. But again, we just encourage you to use this time. As Sarah said, we've had a lot of technology this past year, so we really encourage folks to give it a breather. We live by the bells at camp, so campers don't really even need to have a watch. Their counselors will keep them attuned to the day, and the bells will as well. In terms of, got a lot of technology questions. So I'm going to hold on that for a second and switch over to our chat box here. And Sid or Sarah, I don't know or Sid, there was a question about horseback riding lessons in 1 week sessions. Can you just talk about horseback riding during our 1 week sessions?
Yeah, I just answered it in the Q&A, but I can definitely elaborate on it a little bit. Essentially, yes, indeed, there will be horseback riding experiences for campers in 1 week sessions. We are not offering lessons during that time, but that's mostly just because we want to make sure that all campers during those sessions have an opportunity to do ring rides or trail rides or just to visit the barn during that week of camp.
Fantastic. Sarah, there's a question in the chat box about how do campers write their families? Do they write on a paper in the morning? Is the note then emailed? Last time this was unclear to our camper and he didn't know what the papers were for. He wrote the letters, but they weren't mailed until the end of camp. So could you answer that, tell them about the different ways we communicate?
It's a great question. And I think I saw this before I got to that slide, so I think I addressed it, but I'll say it again. You can do the camper emails through your Camp in Touch account. The thing I didn't talk about was the camp stamps. You'll have 5 free camp stamps per week automatically. It is 1 camp stamp to send a letter. It's 1 camp stamp to have a letter sent back to you too. You can purchase more through Camp in Touch if you would like for a nominal fee. So you send your emails, we print them in each morning. So if you get a letter in through your Camp in Touch account by I think it's 8 a.m. Eastern time, we'll have printed the past 24 hours at that time. We'll put them in the cabin mailboxes along with the reply note. So make sure you select that reply note box so it prints the blank page for your camper. Make sure you send your camper with a pen as well because it needs dark ink to be able to be scanned back. So we'll give the camper the letter from you, the reply note. They'll write their reply, and then we collect mail typically after breakfast the following day. So there is sort of a lapse in time. You could write 2 notes before you get your camper's first note back just because of the timing of it all. And our counselors remind campers, and we'll continue to try and do a better job on this, to make sure they turn in, that we collect them to turn in so they get scanned and returned to you. So replies happen in the morning as well. I saw a question also about being afraid of the dark. Has anyone answered that? No. So. Yes, you can absolutely bring a flashlight. It's on the packing list. Our Kaibos our wash houses have lights on all night on the outside and the inside. And our cabins also have automatic lights that like censored lights outside as well. So when someone opens the door or comes back in or gets close to the cabin, the lights will go on. So while camp is dark at night, and it's pretty amazing to see the night sky at Camp Echo. One of my favorite t-shirts from camp is our night sky shirt, because the stars are just so beautiful if it's not cloudy. And that's something that we don't get to experience in the city. But it can be dark. So absolutely, you can bring a flashlight to feel comfortable, 100%. And yes, you can bring also like a small, like handheld battery operated fan if you would like as well. The cabins are do not have air conditioning, but they have, I always forget what it's called. They're ventilated. They have exhaust fans that are pretty powerful. So campers often will say, oh, we have AC in our cabin. It's not AC, they're exhaust fans, but they work pretty well. So there is a good amount of airflow that happens through the cabin.
All right, I do want to follow up on a couple of COVID questions just to clarify. Someone in the chat box asked, they may have missed it, but will there be COVID tests? And then someone else asked about PCR testing before camp. And we do plan to ask for testing before camp. We're still finalizing what the exact kind of expectation and access will be that we can provide to help families with testing. And so that'll be finalized for our May call. And then also having a combination of surveillance testing, most likely once a week at camp for our 2-week campers. We're working with the state of Michigan right now to figure out, they are doing a very similar program for their sports, high school sports, that they're discussing providing access to summer camps to do the same, though we also have a few other avenues that we're pursuing and monitoring if that doesn't happen, as well as having some rapid tests available should we have symptomatic campers or staff. So there will be testing, and we're still finalizing what that is going to look like. Again, a few more questions about technology, and we really are going to trust our families to evaluate their devices. And but again, our counselors, if they deem that a device isn't kind of meeting our expectation and campers are using it as a distraction beyond just kind of a time or listening to music, those are kind of really the only two things, listening to music. And listening to music on devices is only allowed during rest hour. It's not something where kids are permitted to walk around camp listening to music. It's really only as kind of a in your bunk activity if you have some music that you want to be able to listen to either during rest hour or at bedtime when you're falling asleep. Then counselors will hold on to that device and ask our leadership team to hold on to that securely for the duration of the session. Will counselors be vaccinated? We're not requiring our counselors to vaccinate, but we are strongly encouraging it and helping all of our staff gain access to vaccines. So we are working really hard with our staff. We had an all staff call earlier today with all our staff who are coming to camp this summer to talk through some of those pieces as well. So our expectation is that a majority of our staff will be vaccinated, but we are not requiring it of our staff for this summer. All right, I just rapid fired a bunch of questions. I'm going to breathe for a second here. Sarah or Sid, do you see a question you feel like maybe I haven't addressed yet that you want to?
Yes, I just saw one in the chat about bathrooms at night. So yes, most people often have to use the bathroom at night, and our Kaibos, our wash houses, are separate from our cabins. And yes, your camper can absolutely be walked to the Kaibo with a counselor or a cabin mate. And that's something that counselors go over with the cabin on the first day. And they talk about, a couple of things like what happens if you wake up in the middle of the night? What if you have to go to the bathroom? Kind of who's going to be your person? And also, what happens if you wake up before the bell rings in the morning? And what are some quiet things that you can do in your bed so as not to wake up your cabin mates? And someone asked about if they can bring books. Books are great things to bring for rest hour, for free time if your camper maybe doesn't want to do whatever their unit choice activities are and would rather sit under a tree nearby and read a book. If they wake up early in the morning, like Sudoku, cards, things like that, any sort of quiet, mostly independent things are really wonderful for kids to have. And again, especially after this crazy year we've had, I think they'll be extra important for campers to be able to have some things that they can do personally to kind of wind down and get recentered after, a full day of activities with a lot of people, which is something that our bodies and our minds just are not used to right now. So, and the Kaibos are all reasonably close to the cabins, no more than a 2-minute walk. And they are, again, well lit, easy to find. And it's part of that cabin tour to make sure everyone knows where their cabin is, where the closest Kaibo is, and all of those important things. So they can always wake up a counselor if they need anything in the middle of the night.
Just going back to cabins, and there's a question about kind of grade proximity. And the question was specific to the possibility of gender neutral or all gender cabins, but it's worth noting for all of our cabins, our goal is that cabins only span 2 grades. So rising 6th and 7th graders or 7th and 8th graders or 4th and 5th graders. Because we know oftentimes there are friend requests or siblings who want to be together across grades. So that's something that we always honor. And there are sometimes rare, exceptions to that, but really that is our norm. So if you're making a mutual request that is beyond 2 grades apart, like a rising 6th and 8th grader, we cannot guarantee that. We'll likely in those situations follow up with the families to learn a little bit more. We know sometimes there are unique circumstances where grades and ages or maturity don't necessarily all align, and we want to be mindful of the development of our campers as we're making our cabin placements. So that's true of all of our cabins. I see a great question about can kids older than 14 still go to camp? Thank you for that question. That's a great opportunity for us to plug some of our other programs. Today, we've been talking about traditional camp, which is for rising 3rd through 9th graders. So our current 2nd through 8th graders. We always talk about the grade that campers will be going into after they attend camp in the summer. But we have a number of programs, both on-site programs and adventure tripping programs for high school age participants. Most of our wilderness trips, our adventure trips for this summer are at capacity, but we do still have some spots available in our on-site programs, our leader in training and counselor in training programs for rising 10th and 11th graders, and some of our wilderness programs that live in yurts or platform tents at Camp Echo for rising 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So if you're curious about any of those, reach out to Sarah or shoot us an email at echoinfo@mcgillymca.org, and we can talk more about that. And Sarah is going to answer a question about waking up early, I think.
Yes. So yes, I was about to type an answer as I did that. So yes, if campers wake up early, they need to stay in their bunk, or can they go outside? Yes, they do need to stay in their bunk, in their cabin. Supervision is really important. And so we don't want kids to be wandering all over camp without a counselor nearby just because they're up early. So yes, that is something that we will stay in our bunks. We'll do something quietly. And oftentimes we get asked at info sessions, will I always wake up early? And that might be true for the first day or 2 of camp, but usually by the 3rd day, if not sooner, campers that often wake up early start to sleep in until the bell rings, because our days are so full and we're just not used to using our bodies quite this way. And so we get really tired. We need all the sleep we can get. We stay up maybe a little bit later. Sometimes we might at home. And so usually after the first couple of mornings, campers will sleep all the way into the bell. But yes, they do have to stay in their cabin. So make sure that you send your camper with some nice, quiet, solo activities they can do in their beds. And we have the advantage of being on Eastern time. Good point. Thanks, Sid.
I've seen a couple of questions in the chat that kind of speak to, because cabins are doing all their activities together, or most of their activities together, and some activities in larger kind of unit groups. Kind of the question or concern possibly of what a camper will do if they either can't or aren't interested in participating in one of those activities. For instance, I see if a camper is in a group is allergic to horses and their cabin is going to the barn to do some horseback riding, or if a camper is not comfortable in water and their group is going to one of our aquatic areas. And our counselors and leadership staff work really hard to support all of our campers in creating meaningful opportunities and adjustments to still have a positive experience, and not feel like they're being left out, but that they still have an opportunity to do something really meaningful, either with another staff member or in that space. So for instance, if someone isn't comfortable swimming and their group is going down to go tubing or water skiing, we always have one or two campers who ride in the boat with the boat driver as a spotter or observer to watch what's happening. And so they still have the opportunity to be out on the water and encouraging their friends who are learning how to water ski or who are going tubing, or in the barn, it might be an opportunity to do an activity in the barn area away from the horses, or connect with the counselors to do another activity, because sometimes the barn staff will take a group for a ride and the counselors of that cabin might be working on something different. And so there are a lot of different ways that we work to engage campers, and we also at the same time schedule activities for our cabins in ways to make sure that we're not what's the word we're looking for, accentuate kind of some of those experiences for people. I think we all can expect there might be one or two activities that we aren't comfortable or aren't interested in participating in, and we won't push, we'll push campers into what we say is their learning zone, so outside of their comfort zone a little bit, trying new things. We won't push campers into spaces where they feel unsafe or in danger if they really, for whatever reason, aren't comfortable participating or aren't able to participate in an activity. And yes, tubing is still happening this summer as a cabin activity. I tell you, when we're virtual, right? Like we can just go on forever. There's not the awkward as people start to stand up and leave. So again, we will keep answering questions for a little bit longer here. And I see a question, but yeah, don't feel bad if you leave. This is being recorded, I should add. And so it'll be posted on our YouTube. So if you're like, I gotta go, but I'm curious what else people talk about, you'll get the link to, we'll send out an email with a link to this recording, and you can just fast forward to the last however many minutes. You can go to like 75 minutes in, and that's where that you'll have left. I see a couple questions. One question in the chat box I see is, are there tribes? And I'm not sure what that question is. We don't have any kind of groupings or activities at camp that use the term tribes, or so I'm not sure what that question is. Feel free to elaborate in the chat box if there's more to that question. Can campers take showers in the morning and at night? It's a great question. We love when campers want to take showers, and we want to make sure that all of our campers have opportunities every day to take showers. We will, though, again, kind of to what we said earlier, supervision is really important to us, particularly in around shower times. And so campers won't be permitted to kind of go off and shower on their own. The counselors will make sure that there's a time every day for the campers in their cabin to take a shower. And so, it might be if a lot of people in the cabin do like to wake up early and take a shower in the morning, maybe that will be a cabin activity that a counselor will get up with them and a group of them will go and shower in the morning. Or it's possible they'll be kind of after breakfast or in the afternoon, or maybe a cabin will use the wind down time in the evening to all shower together. But campers can't just kind of wake up independently and go take a shower, or in the evening after when everyone else has gone to bed, go and take a shower. It's important to us that those times be safely supervised.
I'm going to stop the share just so people don't get a little surprised. And I'm going to put the link to our video about the swim evaluation in the chat box, because I see there's a couple questions still about the swim evaluation.
Awesome. Sid, do you mind if I ask you to answer the question? There's a question about how much should campers put in their trading post account for trail rides?
I feel like I need some support to answer that question.
0 is the answer to that question. No worries. 0. And so I appreciate that question. I see that's coming from Gina DeFino. And Gina, about 4 or 5 years ago, we removed the charge for trail rides at camp. We want to make sure that campers weren't making decisions, especially about their program activities based on money while they're at camp. So while there is a fee attached to signing up for horseback riding lessons in advance, once campers get to camp, they do not need to pay for any additional trail rides that they sign up for. And our staff work really hard to make sure everyone that's is getting even distribution that individual campers aren't getting lots of opportunities for trail rides if others are interested and have not had the opportunity. Similarly, if cabin groups were to tie-dye t-shirts all as a group, we would not charge campers for those t-shirts. But if there is a camper that really loves tie-dye t-shirts and wants to tie-dye t-shirts for their entire family at home or for every day of the week, they would be required to pay for those extra t-shirts. So no need there. I love really specific questions. Should they bring stainless steel water bottles? That is a personal choice. I think stainless steel or thick plastic. I do appreciate, a hardy water bottle. There's some water bottles that are pretty flimsy and kind of water bottles at camp do tend to get dropped, possibly kicked along in the ground with gravel roads. So, pretty thin plastic sometimes does break, but any sort of water bottle is great. We definitely encourage our campers to stay hydrated often. So please bring 1 or 2. And I think Sarah mentioned it earlier, but I'll reiterate, especially with water bottles, make sure they're labeled. We have water bottles get left all over the place. It happens. So many water bottles. And one of our favorite things is to reunite things that have been found with those who lost them. So please label everything that you can. All right, I'm getting a little caught up here. What about the candy store? Should I put money in my kid's account for that? So and I may be reiterating something that Sarah already shared, but so at the time of registration, we add a $50 charge to every single camper's account. And that's $50 for their camp store account. Parents are welcome to add to that. And similarly, if you don't want your child to have $50 when they get to camp in their camp store account, you can let our office know and we can reduce that. $50 is kind of the level that we feel like gives campers the opportunity to purchase anything they want at the trading post, but not everything that they want. So that's something that we emphasize with them. You have to make some choices. Snacks are $1 maybe in the evening. And so if you want to get one each day, that might be $10. And then, if you want to buy a sweatshirt or something like that, that might be a t-shirt, something that might be the extent of your money. So $50 is enough for campers to, again, purchase anything they want at camp and get some snacks too. But you can adjust that. And any campers who are receiving a reduced fee through our financial assistance program, that same reduction applies to the camp store account that they have received as well. And should someone run out, that's where Sarah mentioned earlier, if your camper runs out early, parents are welcome to add more funds online, and they are welcome to send them a note saying, we talked about this, you had your $50. I hope you enjoyed it.
I see a question about the bus on the way to camp and any stops for bathroom breaks or snacks. Such a great question. We do ask that you pack a bagged lunch for the bus ride. The bus rides will be staggered this year, so the timing might be a little funky, but we will not stop for snacks. And there is a bathroom on the bus because they're coach buses. So campers are on the bus for the whole ride. Make sure snacks are packed appropriately. And then when they get to camp, if they have any leftover snacks, their counselor is asked to collect those because we don't have outside food at camp. We don't want food in our cabins. We don't want animals, all that good stuff. So no stops, bring food.
Indeed. And the bus ride is about 4.5 hours long, depending on traffic. Usually going to camp on Sundays, it's pretty spot on, 4.5 hours. Coming back from camp is usually on Fridays, and session 3 this year does end on a Thursday. We want to make sure we note that because we're giving our staff one additional day for their mental health off between sessions. We know this summer is going to be a challenging summer for a lot of our staff, and just a lot more to be mindful of. And so we are taking an extra day off between sessions 3 and 4, but we do tend to sometimes see longer bus rides on the way home because of traffic coming back into Chicago. And we do packed lunches on the way back. We pack lunches for the campers to have on the way, and we give them a few different options of what kind of sandwiches and what snacks they would like, so that they can stay fed on the way home. And we do also have a couple movies on the buses. They're really nice coach buses. Sid's gonna, I think, field a questions here about running.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So running a camp, kind of similar to the question about can we leave the cabin when you wake up early? Supervision is really the top priority for our staff. And so a lot of times running would mean not being supervised by a staff member. And so I think that's kind of a limiting factor. And then beyond that, camp is already so active, and our schedule is so jam-packed that I feel like your daughter would be very surprised at how tired and what a great workout she gets in without running. So I don't know that it would even be necessary, but there's certainly lots of opportunity to run around and be active and just have a general, kind of fun, active workout in a camp sense.
I'll add to what Sid shared. We have had, on occasion in the past, we've done like a camper fun run mile out to the front of camp and back as kind of like an organized activity. So if that's something that your daughter would be really excited about, I encourage maybe put a note in your letter, kind of camper letter, to your counselors to let them know and remind them when you get to camp. Because again, I think that's some of the magic of our program this year, where counselors will be with their cabins throughout the time and planning a little more flexible and planning some of those activities. That could be a fun activity if there were others in your daughter's cabin as well that wanted to do something like that they can make it a special event for them. So
the questions keep rolling in, and I've seen a couple. We still have about 30 people hanging out with us, which is awesome. A couple people have asked, when is this over? We finished the presentation. So you do not need to stay. If you have more questions, we are going to keep answering them. So they keep coming in. We're going to stick around and answer them. But if you have gotten all your questions answered and you got somewhere to be, thank you for joining us. we hope we were able to give you a good understanding of kind of what to expect, and you'll get a lot more information from us. But we'll keep answering questions. Will kids need to wear masks on the bus? Yes, they will. So please prepare for that. We are going to be wearing masks a lot this summer. And so just kind of make sure that we're practicing that. I think kids are oftentimes better wearing masks than adults. And one of my favorite memories from family camp last year was hearing folks say, wow, I can't believe how much fun you can have in a mask. It really isn't impacting my experience at all. So safety is the priority, especially in an enclosed space like the buses. And anytime we are in an indoor space at camp, we will be wearing masks unless we're showering or brushing our teeth for the most part. Bernard, can you tell us more about bus seating and motion sickness?
Definitely. And that's something that we are still finalizing. We're continuing to track kind of recommendations on bus travel. And we anticipate that we know that our bus capacity is going to be reduced. It's just a question of how reduced it's going to be. So, whether it'll be 50% of our usual capacity or possibly slightly above that, possibly 60 or 70% of our usual bus capacity. So we know it's going to be reduced significantly. And so if we had multiple people sitting on a bus, or kind of like two seats sitting next to each other in a row, it would be with other campers in their assigned pod or cabin, but we wouldn't assign people or give people the opportunity to sit with campers from other cabins or pods. So we're trying to think about how we can have people riding the bus with other campers in their cabin or pod and in their unit. And so, as Sarah mentioned earlier, we are planning right now to have staggered bus departures. So buses departing possibly every kind of 20 to 30 minutes from the Y in Evanston, probably every 30 minutes, because when we have all of our buses departing from the Y at the same time, we have not just the 200 campers who are riding the bus, but we have 200 families. So we have 400, 600 people sometimes gathered in a very close area. And so we want to spread that out a little bit, stagger that out a little bit. And that's, again, something we're finalizing, and we'll be sharing out more in early May when we have a little more information and have seen a little more guidance from different authorities. In terms of motion sickness, you are welcome to provide your camper with some medication in advance if they take some Dramamine before they get on the bus. That's common. We ask that you not have your camper carrying their own medication. Any medications need to be checked in advance, but you can also send up Dramamine for the bus ride home. You can say, get that checked in so that we hold on to it and administer it to them before they get on the bus to head home. And then again, in terms of where they sit on the bus, if that's something of concern, we can definitely, put those notes in. I would say try to share that with us via email or if there's space on the transportation form, just so we can plan that out in advance. Can I bring a sling backpack to bring stuff in and carry around? Yes, please. And we definitely encourage bringing a day pack. I think it may even be on our packing list to bring a day pack. So we encourage people to have a pack to carry their stuff because, we go to a lot of different activities and our cabins can be a little spread out and from the activity areas. And so it's nice to be able to bring water for the day, bring a towel to be going down to activity. I think back to we seem to lose things a lot. I think people with sling bags or drawstring backpacks tend to lose items less often. And we have a bunch of drawstring bags that we can sell from our camp store as well. Campers are not able to select top or bottom bunk in advance. Unfortunately, we don't have that level of specificity in our cabin placements, and we would not want to, we really focus on those bunk mate requests and getting people in with the same grades. And so that would possibly put us in a pinch, but that's something, again, the counselors work with campers on so that it's, not too much of a mad dash if everyone is hoping for the same thing, that those can be divided up in an equitable way. And parents are, that said, parents we encourage you to let us know if your camper has any sleep patterns or sleep behaviors that would make it safer for them to be on a bottom bunk. Please let us know. In that case, obviously we will prioritize that in placing campers in different bunks in the cabin. Even sometimes where we put people in the cabin, if they need quicker access to get to the bathroom or something of that sort, they're often things that we take into account when parents share that information in advance.
It looks like we've answered all of your questions. If you have more, feel free. I know, Bernard, it's a marathon. You did great. You're also always welcome to email us, to call us. Now in the summertime, we want to make sure you have all the information you need before you get to camp to be successful. Really, please take time to review those forms, because a lot of the stuff that Bernard talked about, if you have those concerns, if you can share it with us so we know, so we can prepare for your camper, that would be super helpful and benefit your camper's experience. What is Wacky Wednesday? We just love to dress up at camp and to have an excuse, and we love alliteration. So on Wednesdays, we like to look a little silly. So we put on some costumes, wear something inside out or backwards. There's no specific protocol or dress code for Wacky Wednesdays. It's just a reason to have fun. And truthfully, it's not really the only theme day that happens at camp. It's just the most reliable one. Oftentimes on Tuesdays, you'll see people that twin, where they put on like a matching shirt or something. I'm sure there are other fun theme days that just kind of pop up, and counselors will announce like, today it's Monday, so I'm wearing monochromatic clothes. I'm wearing everything in one color because it's alliterating. It's just a funny, silly camp thing. So if you have a funny hat or costume or something silly to wear, it's a fun camp thing. When else can you just like wander around in a crazy costume? Oh, Bernard's Wacky Wednesday. Okay.
I can't remember if this was a Wacky Wednesday or a monochromatic Wednesday, because it would suffice for either. But that's one example of an attempt at being wacky.
We love that question.
I also love changing my virtual background as a way to answer questions. I was doing it during trip info sessions as well, sharing different pictures from different places that our adventure trips go.
We had some rough tech at the start, but look at us now. We still have people hanging out with us.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to wrap this up in 3 minutes.
Okay.
7:35, 7:35 camp time, 6:35 McGaw YMCA time. So final questions or comments, if you're still here and you're just really excited and that's why you're still on the line, feel free to put in the chat box just what you're excited about. We love to hear what you're excited about. We love reading the campers share in their letters, their counselors, what they're excited about, what makes them feel included at camp. These are really important things to us that we read and think about as we try to make an experience for all of our campers.
And I'm going to stop the recording. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you made it this far, thanks for sticking with us. Let us know if you have more questions. Okay, we're not recording, but I think we